Ladies and gentlemen, history has shown us again and again great nations do not fall because of what others do to them, but because of the mistakes they make themselves. Today, America stands at such a turning point. Its missteps in economy, technology, and global trust are opening new doors, not for its allies, not for its rivals, but for an unexpected player, India. America's strategic mistakes are not just policy errors on paper, they are decisions that shape the balance of global power for decades. When a nation grows comfortable at the top, it often stops listening, stops adapting, and starts believing that past victories will automatically guarantee future success. But the world does not work that way. The world is a living, moving organism, changing with every technological breakthrough, every shift in culture, every rise of a new generation. America's overconfidence has led to an assumption that its dominance will remain unchallenged. Yet history has proven that no empire, no matter how powerful, is immune to decline when it underestimates the pace of change. This mistake of overconfidence is visible in the way America approaches global trade, innovation, and even diplomacy. The belief that others will always follow its lead has blinded it to the quiet rise of nations that are hungry, energetic, and determined to seize opportunities where America hesitates. At the core of these mistakes lies a slowing of innovation. Once, America was the unquestioned leader in technology, research, and ideas that shaped the future. Silicon Valley symbolized creativity, daring, and an open door for entrepreneurs with dreams bigger than themselves. But now the same valley struggles with overregulation, with talent moving elsewhere, and with a culture that sometimes celebrates valuations more than real value. When innovation slows down, it is not just a corporate issue, it becomes a national weakness. Other nations watch, learn, and accelerate. India, for example, sees this gap and is building its own wave of digital infrastructure, nurturing a generation of engineers and entrepreneurs ready to leap into the global stage. America's hesitation in renewing its innovative spirit has created space for others to write the next chapter of technological leadership. Another mistake is the weakening of global trust. For decades, America's greatest strength was not just its military power or its economic size, but the confidence other nations placed in its stability, its consistency, and its leadership. That trust is eroding. Unpredictable policies, shifting commitments, and internal divisions send signals to the world that America cannot be counted on in the same way it once was. And in a globalized world where alliances and partnerships are the foundation of progress, losing trust is more dangerous than losing money. Trust is currency, and when it devalues, nations look elsewhere for leadership. India, with its growing influence and soft power through culture, technology, and democracy, becomes an appealing alternative. America's mistake of taking trust for granted has unintentionally opened the door for India to strengthen its credibility on the world stage. We must also understand that America's mistakes are not isolated incidents but patterns. Overreliance on past glory, underestimation of competition, and mismanagement of talent are themes that repeat throughout history when great nations decline. Look at the Roman Empire, the British Empire, and many others that believed their dominance was eternal. The same seeds of complacency are visible today. In contrast, India, though still facing its own challenges, has the advantage of hunger for growth, for recognition, for a place at the table where decisions about the future are made. America's mistake is assuming that leadership is permanent. while India understands that leadership must be earned, often through struggle, resilience, and the ability to turn weaknesses into strengths. What we are witnessing is a shift in mindset. America's mistake is not just about missing opportunities, but about misreading the energy of the new world. The future belongs to the young, to the nations with large, ambitious populations that are not afraid to experiment, fail, and try again. India's demographic advantage gives it a unique position, while America's aging systems and reluctance to adapt slow it down. This is not to say that America is finished or incapable, but its errors are real, and in the global game of leadership, even small mistakes can become massive openings for competitors. America's missteps in innovation, trust, and overconfidence are creating precisely that kind of opening. India's rising strength is not an accident of history. It is the result of years of transformation, resilience, and a hunger that has not been satisfied for generations. For decades, India was seen as a nation of potential, but not performance, a country rich in culture, but limited in power, a land of dreams, but not yet of delivery. Today, that narrative is shifting. What was once described as potential is now being realized as progress. The rise of India is anchored in three undeniable forces: its young population, its rapid digital growth, and the entrepreneurial energy that is spreading across every corner of the nation. Consider the demographic advantage first. More than half of India's population is under the age of 30. This is not just a number, it is an engine. It means that unlike aging nations in the West, India's future is being built by a workforce that is young, ambitious, and eager to prove itself. Every year, millions of students graduate with skills in technology, engineering, medicine, and business. They are not content with traditional paths. They want to create, innovate, and compete on the global stage. While many developed nations worry about shrinking labor forces, India is preparing to unleash a generation of talent that is digitally native and globally connected. This youth power is not only shaping India's internal economy, but is increasingly influencing global industries, from software to pharmaceuticals, from space technology to artificial intelligence. Alongside this demographic engine is the incredible pace of digital growth. India has built one of the world's largest and most inclusive digital infrastructures in record time. Mobile connectivity has reached villages that were once cut off from the rest of the country. Affordable data has turned even the poorest households into participants in the digital economy. Systems like Aadhaar, UPI, and Digital India initiatives have transformed how people transact, how businesses operate, and how governance is delivered. The combination of scale, affordability, and innovation has created an environment where startups can thrive, not just in urban centers, but in rural communities as well. This digital foundation is positioning India as a model for emerging economies and as a serious competitor in the global digital economy. The third pillar of India's rising strength is entrepreneurial energy. For too long, India's brightest minds were told to seek safe jobs, to work in government offices or multinational companies, to avoid risk and embrace security. That mindset is changing. Today, entrepreneurship is celebrated, not feared. Young Indians are founding startups that address real problems, from agriculture to healthcare, from education to logistics. Venture capital is flowing into the country, not just because of low costs, but because of the creativity and determination of Indian entrepreneurs. Global companies are investing heavily in India because they recognize this energy cannot be ignored. The startup ecosystem is no longer a side story. It is becoming a defining feature of India's identity as a rising power. When these three forces combine, youth, digital transformation, and entrepreneurship, they create a multiplier effect. India is not just catching up, it is leapfrogging. In areas where older systems are slowing other nations down, India is building from scratch, avoiding the burden of legacy infrastructure. In education, new models are emerging that blend online and offline learning. In finance, digital payments are reaching places where traditional banks never could. In technology, engineers are creating solutions that are designed for scale and affordability, making them attractive not only to India, but to the entire developing world. This rising strength is not confined to the economy alone. It is reshaping India's role in global politics, in culture, and in soft power. Indian films, music, and traditions already reach audiences worldwide. But now this cultural influence is backed by economic and technological weight. As global companies look for new markets and new partners, India is becoming a natural choice, not only because of its size, but because of its capacity to adapt quickly and to deliver results at scale. In a time when many nations are struggling with uncertainty, India's story of growth and resilience stands out as a beacon of possibility. India's rising strength is therefore not a matter of chance. It is being built piece by piece through the determination of its people, the foresight of its policies, and the momentum of its opportunities. It is a reminder that leadership in the modern world does not depend solely on what resources a country has, but on how it chooses to use them. America's mistakes have created openings, but it is India's energy, its youth, and its digital revolution that give it the ability to walk through those openings with confidence and ambition. Leadership today is no longer defined by the size of an army or the number of weapons a nation possesses. In the past, power was measured in land, in resources, in the ability to conquer. But in the 21st century, the definition of leadership has shifted dramatically. It is no longer about the force you can apply, but the trust you can inspire, the innovation you can deliver, and the talent you can empower. Those who still believe that leadership comes from domination will soon find themselves left behind, because the future belongs to nations and people who understand that true influence comes from creating solutions, not conflicts. Innovation has become the foundation of leadership. Countries that lead in technology lead in defining the rules of the future. Look at how the internet reshaped commerce, how smartphones redefined communication, how artificial intelligence is beginning to transform industries from healthcare to finance. Each of these waves of innovation created new centers of power, not because of military victories, but because of breakthroughs in ideas. Leadership in this era means being at the front of these waves, not watching them from behind. Those who innovate set the standards, write the rules, and capture the markets that others can only follow. If America slows down in its drive for innovation, and India accelerates with its growing digital ecosystem, the balance of leadership will naturally shift toward those who create rather than those who rest on past achievements. Trust is another pillar of leadership in the modern age. Nations, like individuals, rise not only because of what they produce, but because of the confidence they inspire. Trust cannot be bought. It must be earned through consistency, reliability, and vision. When partners, allies, and citizens lose faith in a nation's ability to deliver on its promises, leadership erodes. America once held a unique position as the most trusted leader on the global stage, but political instability and inconsistent policies have weakened that trust. In contrast, India has an opportunity to build credibility by demonstrating reliability in partnerships, by offering stability in a time of uncertainty, and by showing the world that its word can be counted on. In a connected world, where supply chains, investments, and alliances stretch across continents, trust is as valuable as gold, and those who hold it will lead. Talent is the third element that redefines leadership today. Unlike in the past, when power was concentrated in kings, emperors, or generals, today's leadership is about unleashing the collective talent of millions. Nations that can educate, empower, and inspire their people to think differently, to innovate, to build, and to collaborate are the ones that will rise. India, with its vast pool of young and skilled individuals, has this advantage in abundance. When talent is matched with opportunity, extraordinary things happen. The global demand for Indian engineers, doctors, and entrepreneurs is proof of the talent that already exists. But the real opportunity lies in how India uses this talent domestically to create industries, solve social challenges, and set new global benchmarks. Leadership comes not from exporting your best people to other nations, but from creating an environment where they can thrive at home and attract others to join them. The redefinition of leadership also means that soft power is as important as hard power. Influence is not always visible in numbers or statistics, but in the ability to shape narratives, inspire cultures, and create shared aspirations. Movies, music, ideas, and even digital platforms carry influence in ways armies cannot. India's cultural footprint is growing rapidly, and when combined with its rising economic and technological weight, it gives the country a new kind of leadership, one that touches hearts as well as markets. This form of leadership builds long-lasting connections because it is rooted in attraction rather than coercion. In this new definition of leadership, adaptability becomes a silent but decisive factor. The world is changing faster than ever before. Technologies that are revolutionary today will be outdated tomorrow. Consumer preferences, political landscapes, and economic realities shift with breathtaking speed. A leader, whether a nation or an individual, must be quick to sense change and even quicker to adapt to it. Rigid systems break under the weight of new realities, but flexible systems evolve and thrive. India's ability to leapfrog older technologies, to adapt quickly to digital systems, and to embrace innovation at scale gives it an edge in a world where speed and flexibility define who leads and who follows. This is why leadership today is earned not by controlling others, but by enabling them. It is not about fear, but about faith. It is not about commanding silence, but about inspiring voices. Those who understand this will rise to the top of the new global order, because in the modern era, leadership is less about the crown you wear and more about the trust, innovation, and talent you nurture in others. Opportunity from crisis is one of the oldest truths in human history, yet it remains one of the least understood. When a nation, a business, or even an individual makes a mistake, the instinct of others is often to laugh, to criticize, or to point fingers. But the wisest understand that every mistake leaves behind an opening, a gap that someone else can fill. In the global arena, when a dominant power falters, it does not mean the world stops moving. It simply means someone else has the chance to step forward. The mistake of one nation becomes the opportunity of another, and what we are witnessing right now is the perfect demonstration of that principle. Every great shift in global leadership has been triggered not only by the strength of a rising power, but also by the weaknesses of the existing one. Think about how the decline of one empire always coincided with the emergence of another. When Britain's influence shrank, America filled the vacuum. When Rome fell, other kingdoms divided its space. History is full of such patterns, and today, America's miscalculations are creating space for India to grow into a leadership role it has long aspired to. This is not about celebrating someone's failure. It is about recognizing the rhythm of history. The vacuum created by a mistake does not remain empty for long. It is always filled by someone willing to move faster, act bolder, and take risks when others hesitate. A crisis is never just destruction, it is also creation. When America struggles with overconfidence, slowing innovation, or internal division, it leaves behind gaps in technology, in trust, in global influence. These gaps are not invisible. They are noticed by countries that are alert, ambitious, and ready. India has positioned itself as one of those countries. It sees the slowing of one giant not as a reason to relax, but as a signal to accelerate. The opportunity comes not because India is without challenges, but because it understands that challenges are universal. What matters is not the existence of problems, but the willingness to solve them faster than others. A crisis for one is a lesson for another, and India's ability to learn quickly gives it an edge. The very structure of opportunity in a crisis comes down to mindset. While one nation sees disruption as a threat, another sees it as a chance to rewrite the rules. When global supply chains were shaken, India used the moment to position itself as a manufacturing and innovation hub. When digital ecosystems became essential for survival, India's already strong digital infrastructure turned into a competitive advantage. The same crisis that paralyzed some countries gave India a platform to showcase resilience and adaptability. This is the essence of turning crisis into opportunity. Not waiting for perfect conditions, but using imperfect conditions as the trigger for growth. Another aspect of opportunity in crisis is the way it reveals hidden strengths. Nations often underestimate their own capacity until they are forced to test it. For decades, India was underestimated by outsiders and sometimes even by itself. Yet as crises unfolded, from global economic instability to health emergencies, India demonstrated that it could not only manage but also innovate under pressure. Manufacturing vaccines at scale, expanding digital payments rapidly, and strengthening international partnerships during turbulent times showed that the country was not just surviving, but using the crisis to build new capabilities. America's mistakes create the stage, but India's resilience ensures it can perform on it. Crises also shift global attention. When a traditional leader falters, the world begins looking for alternatives. Investors, innovators, and governments start asking who can provide stability, who can offer solutions, who can inspire confidence. This attention creates a window of influence. India, with its massive market, young talent, and digital momentum, becomes an attractive choice. The crisis of one nation creates curiosity about another, and that curiosity, if nurtured correctly, transforms into trust and partnership. This is how nations step into leadership roles, not by demanding recognition, but by earning it in moments of global uncertainty. At an individual level, the same principle applies. When others around you make mistakes, you can complain, you can criticize, or you can learn and act. The people who rise are not always the strongest or the smartest, but those who understand timing. They know that moments of disruption are also moments of possibility. The same lesson applies to nations. America's mistakes may be costly for itself, but they are priceless lessons for India. By observing what went wrong, India gains clarity on what must go right. By avoiding the same pitfalls, it can chart a path that is not only different, but also more sustainable. The true nature of opportunity in crisis is that it demands courage. It is not enough to see the opening. One must be willing to walk through it. Many nations have watched mistakes of others, but hesitated to act, missing their chance. India, however, is in a unique position because of its scale, its momentum, and its hunger. The mistakes of others create the possibility, but only determination can transform that possibility into reality. Belief is the foundation of every transformation, whether it is in a person, a company, or a nation. Without belief, even the greatest opportunities fade into nothing. With belief, even the smallest chance can grow into something extraordinary. For India to step into a position of global leadership, the first and most important requirement is not technology, not resources, not wealth, but belief in its own potential. Nations rise not only because of their size or their strength, but because they believe they deserve to rise. They believe they can lead, and they act on that belief with persistence and courage. Belief is what turns a young population into a force for innovation. A country with more than 1 billion people can either see this number as a burden or as a blessing. If there is no belief in the power of youth, then unemployment, frustration, and wasted talent become the story. But if belief exists, then every young person is seen as a contributor, a builder of the future, a voice that matters. Belief is what allows a student in a small village to dream of building a company that serves the world. It is what inspires an entrepreneur to risk failure because they believe success is possible. It is what convinces leaders to invest in education, infrastructure, and technology because they believe their people can achieve more than what history has told them. Belief is also what transforms crisis into opportunity. Many countries face challenges, but only those with belief treat those challenges as stepping stones rather than walls. India has faced poverty, inequality, and infrastructure gaps for decades. These problems could easily create despair. Yet belief changes the lens. Instead of asking why the problems exist, belief asks how they can be solved and who will take responsibility to solve them. This is why India's progress in digital inclusion, renewable energy, and healthcare innovation has been so powerful. It was not built in the absence of obstacles, but in the presence of them. The belief that solutions were possible drove the action to create them. Belief is contagious. When entrepreneurs believe, they inspire investors. When young people believe, they inspire communities. When leaders believe, they inspire nations. The energy of belief spreads, and it is this energy that creates momentum. Without belief, policies remain words on paper, and ideas remain locked in notebooks. With belief, they transform into action, and action creates results. The story of every great leader, every great nation, begins with a moment when belief was stronger than doubt, when conviction was greater than fear, and when vision was clearer than hesitation. India's chance at leadership depends entirely on how deeply it believes in its story and how boldly it writes the next chapters. At the global level, belief shapes perception. When the world sees a nation that believes in itself, it begins to take notice. Confidence is magnetic. Investors, innovators, and partners are drawn to those who believe in their path. Belief does not mean arrogance. It means clarity and commitment. It means saying to the world, we know who we are, we know where we are going, and we invite you to join us. America's mistakes may have created space, but it is belief that determines who will occupy that space. If India believes it can lead, the world will slowly begin to believe it too. Belief is not blind optimism, it is discipline. It requires working every day, even when results are not visible. It requires taking risks, even when success is not guaranteed. It requires persistence in the face of failure. The greatest obstacle to leadership is not external competition, but internal doubt. Doubt kills dreams faster than failure ever can. Belief, on the other hand, gives life to dreams even before they are visible to others. A nation that believes in its youth, its innovators, and its entrepreneurs will continue to push forward, no matter how many setbacks occur. Belief is the thread that connects all other strengths. Innovation without belief loses courage. Talent without belief lacks confidence. Opportunities without belief remain unused. Trust without belief cannot last. When belief is present, everything else aligns. It is the spark that ignites leadership, the fuel that sustains it, and the light that guides it forward. India's path to global leadership will not be written only by strategies or policies, but by the collective belief of its people that they can and must shape the future.